The first time my mother dismissed my passion for pottery, I was a gangly teenager, all elbows and knees, molding clumsy, lopsided clay figures in the dusty, forgotten corner of our garage. My hands, perpetually stained with ambition and mud, clung to the raw material as if it were a lifeline, a tangible connection to a future only I could envision. My older sister, Dakota, would float in occasionally, her perfect manicure a stark contrast to my dirt-smudged fingers, and giggle, still playing in the mud, Avery. "Aren't you a little old for that?" Mom would follow, a sigh heavy with disapproval. "Avery, darling, why don't you focus on something more practical, like Dakota? She's going to be a lawyer, you know. Pottery is just a hobby." Now, at 32, standing in the heart of my small, perpetually plant-filled bungalow, surrounded by the quiet hum of my kiln and the earthy, comforting scent of drying clay, she was doing it again. But this time, her words, delivered over the phone, carried a chilling, undeniable finality, a subtle tremor of triumph beneath their veneer of crisis. "I'm Avery, and this little studio, tucked discreetly behind my home like a cherished secret, has been my quiet rebellion, my sacred space, my meticulously crafted sanctuary for the last 7 years. Every dusty shelf, every paint-splattered floorboard, every chipped ceramic piece whispers tales of my persistence, of battles fought and dreams slowly, painstakingly shaped into tangible form, a defiant testament to my chosen path. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the deeper, more profound scent of clay curring in the dry heat of the afternoon. Sunlight, filtered through the broad, vibrant leaves of the monstera by the bay window, dappled across my latest creation, a set of intricate porcelain bowls. Their surfaces, a delicate blend of celadon and deep indigo, shimmered with iridescent glazes, each one a testament to countless hours of careful sculpting, precise firing, and meticulous refining. These weren't just bowls. They were the culmination of a year's relentless dedication. Commissioned by a high-end gallery in Santa Fe, their impending sale promising to cover not just 3 months of mortgage payments, but to lay the groundwork for my next grand artistic venture, a coveted fellowship in Kyoto. My phone vibrated, a persistent thrum against the smooth wooden table beside my potter's wheel, pulling me back from my creative reverie. It was Mom. Her 10th call in as many minutes, each one more insistent, more demanding than the last. I sighed, a weary exhalation that stirred the dust motes dancing in the sunbeams, and swiped to answer, already knowing the script, the familiar rhythm of their emotional extortion. "Avery, finally, thank God you picked up. Your sister's in a crisis, and we need your help immediately," she declared, her voice a familiar blend of shrill urgency and barely veiled accusation, a carefully crafted performance designed to evoke immediate guilt and unquestioning compliance. I carefully smoothed a delicate curve on a bowl, my fingers instinctively seeking perfection, a tactile anchor in the rising tide of her drama. "What's Dakota done now, Mom?" I asked, my voice calm, almost detached, betraying none of the internal bracing. I knew Dakota's crises were rarely about her genuine distress, but almost always about her desperate need for control and attention, a strategic maneuver to centralize herself in the family orbit. "It's worse than that. Much, much worse," Mom said, her tone dropping to a dramatic, conspiratorial whisper, as if the very walls of my sanctuary were listening, judging. "Ethan, he's gone, vanished into thin air. He took all the money, the cars, everything. Dakota's left with absolutely nothing, Avery. Can you imagine? Her and the twins utterly destitute. They have nowhere to go." My hands, coated in fine clay dust, froze mid-stroke, my mind registering the word. Nothing. But a tiny, cynical part of me, honed by years of her dramatics, doubted its veracity. Dakota had always had a knack for exaggerating her misfortunes, particularly when there was something to gain. "She needs a place to land, just for a bit, while we figure out this mess. Your father and I have discussed it at length, Avery, and frankly, we see no other option," she continued, her voice gaining a subtly triumphant edge despite the feigned distress. And there it was. A cold dread settled in my stomach before she even finished her meticulously rehearsed plea. "Your studio, darling, it's so spacious, has such wonderful natural light, perfect for the twins' nursery. We can put a crib right by those big windows. And honestly, Avery, it's time you moved on from this. Hobby, you're 32, not 22. Don't you think it's time for a proper career, something more stable, something that actually provides some security? Something that brings in a consistent salary? My gaze drifted from the exquisite curves of my porcelain to the official-looking letter tucked under my well-worn sketchpad. A thick, embossed envelope containing my acceptance to the renowned ceramics fellowship in Kyoto, Japan, starting in precisely 2 weeks. It was the culmination of a decade of relentless work, sacrificing weekends, foregoing social events, pouring every ounce of my being into my craft. A dream whispered into existence over countless late nights, now solidified into reality. The irony was almost palatable, a bitter taste in my mouth, like clay dust mixed with a metallic tang of resentment. Mom, this isn't a hobby. This is my livelihood. I sell my pieces, I teach classes here, I support myself with this. This studio is my business, my entire income. Oh, please, she scoffed. A dismissive wave of her hand I could almost feel through the phone line, a gesture that always grated on my nerves. Those little trinkets barely cover your materials. We know your father helps with the mortgage. He's told us. He's always been so generous with you, quietly covering your expenses so you can play with mud. I bit back the truth, a familiar acrid sting in my throat. Dad hadn't contributed a dime to this place since I bought it outright 5 years ago, putting down a substantial $350,000 for the bungalow and its adjoining studio space. And yet, they still clung to the convenient fiction that I was merely renting, a struggling artist dependent on their perpetual benevolence. It was a narrative they had carefully constructed and rigidly enforced, neatly excusing my lack of a real job and allowing them to maintain a sense of superiority, a comfortable delusion of control over my life. My phone buzzed again, a text from Dakota. Avery, please, the kids need their aunt. They're so scared, don't be selfish. We'll be there in an hour, can you get some tea ready? Selfish. Their go-to word for me since childhood, a convenient label that negated any of my own needs or desires, any ambition that didn't align perfectly with theirs. Your sister is already on her way, Mom announced, her voice tinged with triumphant finality, as if she had already won the argument, sealed my fate. We'll help you clear out. You can put your art supplies in the shed. It'll be fine for a few weeks, darling, just temporarily until Dakota gets back on her feet. I walked to the kitchen, my movements deliberate, each step a conscious act of defiance, a quiet rebellion against the assumed authority in her voice. A strange sense of calm, an almost exhilarating clarity, settled over me amidst the rising tide of their expectations. Another notification flashed on my phone, a message from Liam, confirming the local artisan collective's enthusiastic interest in leasing my property for their new shared workshop space. Perfect timing. A tiny, fierce smile played on my lips, a secret weapon in my arsenal. Mom, I'll put the kettle on. See you soon, I said, my voice steady and deceptively sweet, ending the call before she could offer any more helpful suggestions, any further pronouncements of my imminent obsolescence. They wanted my space? Fine. But they'd learn exactly what happens when you try to uproot an artist, when you attempt to erase their very foundation, their very identity. They would soon discover that some things, once broken, can be reforged into something far stronger, far more beautiful. The electric kettle hissed to life, a quiet prelude to the storm gathering on my doorstep, a domestic sound utterly at odds with the rising turmoil. I pulled out my grandmother's delicate, hand-painted porcelain tea set, its floral patterns faded but still elegant. The one Mom had always admired but never owned, never quite managed to acquire for herself despite her endless quest for refined possessions. It was a small act of defiance, a quiet assertion of my own ownership, my own taste. Today felt like a special occasion, a farewell of sorts. My phone lit up with a reminder. Online check-in for flight to Tokyo available now. I heard the familiar rumble of Mom's pristine, recently waxed Mercedes SUV and the slightly louder hum of Dad's polished BMW sedan pulling into my gravel driveway. Then Dakota's voice, shrill and demanding, already mapping out furniture arrangements in my head, drifted through the open window, a loud, self-important declaration of invasion. They were punctual, as always on time for the next crisis, always ready to insert themselves into my life, to rearrange it to suit their needs. I smoothed my clay-dusted apron, the familiar fabric a comfort, and met my reflection in the small kitchen mirror. The woman looking back wasn't the malleable, eager-to-please daughter they remembered. This woman was different. Her eyes held a new fire, a quiet steel that had been forged in countless hours of solitary creation, of wrestling with stubborn clay and even more stubborn self-doubt. Her resolve was as strong as a perfectly fired pot. The doorbell chimed, a polite, insistent summons. I picked up the steaming teapot, placed it carefully on a gleaming silver tray with 4 matching cups, one for each of them, none for me. "Coming," I called out, my voice clear and steady, a performance of calm that even I almost believed. Let them believe I was the same compliant Avery they had always known, always manipulated. I had precisely 2 weeks to show them just how profoundly wrong they were, to reveal the depths of their misjudgment. The door swung open to their expectant faces, Mom's thinly veiled triumph warring with a facade of exaggerated concern, Dad's meticulously constructed worry lines, and Dakota's oversized designer sunglasses attempting to conceal what I suspected were performative, strategic tears, ready to be deployed at a moment's notice. They strode into my home like conquerors, assessing the space, already mentally redesigning it, mentally erasing my presence. I smiled, a small, tight smile that didn't quite reach my eyes, as I poured the tea, watching the steam curl upwards like the intricate, carefully orchestrated plans forming in my mind. So, I began, my voice soft, almost innocent, my tone carefully neutral. "Tell me everything." They didn't notice how my fingers, beneath the table, tapped out a quick, confident message on my phone, a final confirmation to my lawyer regarding the finalization of the lease agreement. They never really saw me, not truly, beyond their own projections and desires, their limited understanding of my capabilities, but they were about to feel my absence in ways they couldn't possibly imagine. "This studio has incredible potential for a toddler playroom," Dakota declared, her voice a little too loud, her designer sneakers squeaking with each confident step against the hardwood floor I had painstakingly restored myself last summer, sanding away years of neglect and carefully applying a rich, natural oil finish. "We could put a giant play mat right where your kiln is. It's perfect, all that open space." She gestured grandly, as if the space were already hers. "How long do you anticipate needing to stay?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral, my gaze fixed on the steam rising from the teacups, avoiding direct eye contact. "Oh, Avery, my husband just up and left me. I'm not exactly operating on a schedule here," she retorted, pushing her sunglasses onto her head to reveal eyes that were indeed red, but I suspected more from irritation and a lack of sleep than genuine grief. "It's all so sudden, so devastating," Mom interjected, ever the mediator in their manufactured crises, her hand resting gently on Dakota's arm. "Darling, don't press your sister. She's been through enough for one lifetime." Then, turning her attention to me, her voice softening, tinged with a false solicitude, "Avery, we found some perfectly adequate self-storage units down the road, just a few blocks from here. You can put your things there. It's a temporary inconvenience for a family member in need. Surely you understand that." My mind replayed the images of the Kyoto Fellowship acceptance letter, the signed lease for my bungalow, my home, which was now officially leased to the Artisan Collective for the next year, the exit strategy I'd meticulously crafted over the last few months, a quiet symphony of liberation playing out in my head. "Actually," I said, a slight pause for emphasis, "I have several large commissions due in the next few weeks and a few gallery showings lined up. My schedule is quite packed." "Gallery showings? You mean those little craft fairs you do in the park on weekends?" Mom scoffed, her disdain barely concealed, a dismissive wave of her hand that swept away years of my hard work. "The Renwick Gallery in D.C., actually," I replied, a small, triumphant flicker in my eyes. I carefully omitted the part where it was one of the nation's most prestigious craft museums, where my work would be displayed in a major exhibition, a testament to my dedication and talent. "Please," Dakota cut in, tugging open one of my supply drawers, her fingers brushing against my expensive pigments and delicate tools, clearly unaware of their value. "You can paint in the shed, Avery. It's not like you're a world-renowned artist yet. It's just temporary, right?" Her tone was dismissive, almost mocking, a familiar condescension that had followed me since childhood. My phone buzzed, a text from Dad. "Just spoke with your landlord, Robert. He's being completely uncooperative about early lease termination. Says he hasn't heard from you about vacating. Very odd. I almost burst out laughing, a sound I had to stifle, pressing my lips together. They still believed I was a renter, a simple tenant, easily evicted at their whim, not the homeowner they were currently trying to displace. I need to make some calls, I said, pushing back my chair, feigning urgency. Work stuff. I stepped into my small bedroom, pulling the door almost shut, and dialed Liam, my former professor and now a close friend and mentor, a beacon of support in my tumultuous family life. They're here, I whispered, my voice low, making themselves quite at home. Dakota's already planning a nursery in the studio. They're completely oblivious. The lease papers are all set, Avery, he replied, his voice calm and reassuring. The collective can move in next week, as planned. Are you truly certain about this, though? It's a pretty big step. No regrets. Through the thin wall, I heard Dakota's complaining voice. This paint on the walls is so bland. It's just beige. We need color for the kids. Something bright and cheerful, like sunshine or a soft lilac. Never been more certain, I answered, a quiet, unshakable resolve settling over me. No regrets at all. When I returned to the studio, they had already started sorting through my belongings, a chaotic system of piles spreading across the floor. A donate pile for my smaller ceramic pieces, a trash pile for my beloved, custom-made tools, an excess pile for raw clay years of my creative endeavors categorized and discarded by people who saw them only as clutter, as obstacles to their own convenience. Oh, good, you're back, Mom chirped, oblivious to my simmering anger, to the deep-seated resentment that had finally reached its boiling point. We need to discuss the timeline for moving your things out. Dakota's emergency housing at her friend's place ends next week, and we want to get her settled here permanently. Actually, I interrupted, my voice calm but firm, a tremor of controlled power beneath the surface. I've made a list of the things I need to sort through. Just give me a few more days. Just a few days, I repeated softly, and they, predictably, relaxed, interpreting my words as surrender, as acquiescence to their demands. They had always underestimated my resolve, my quiet strength. None of them noticed me discreetly tucking the Kyoto Fellowship acceptance letter into my pocket or checking my flight details on my phone, a small, secret gesture of defiance. I think I saw some spare packing boxes in the garage, I offered, a helpful smile plastered on my face, playing my part to perfection. In the garage, I leaned against my old hatchback, the familiar scent of gasoline and old oil a strange comfort. I took a deep, fortifying breath, marshaling my thoughts. My phone buzzed, an email confirming my upgraded seat to business class for my flight to Tokyo. 10 days left until my departure. So, what should I do with these? I asked, holding up a box of expensive, custom-blended glazes, playing my role perfectly, the dutiful daughter seeking guidance. Just sell them. It's not like you'll need them once you get a proper job, Avery, Dakota said, waving her hand dismissively, her attention already focused on a pile of my discarded art books, flipping through them with a bored expression. I added the box of glazes to the keep pile when she wasn't looking. These very glazes had, ironically, contributed significantly to the $350,000 I'd used to buy this house, and indirectly, they had also paid for her last extravagant European vacation, a fact she conveniently ignored or perhaps simply never knew. Your father knows a good friend at his firm who's looking for an administrative assistant, Mom chimed in, ever keen to guide me towards a respectable career, one that fit their preconceived notions of success. I nodded, feigning interest, texting Liam under the table. Meeting still on for 4. Confirmed, bringing contracts and the keys for the collective, he replied. By the way, how much is Ethan actually paying in child support? Just curious. I chose my next words carefully, a calculated risk. By the way, I said, looking innocently at Dakota, how much is Ethan paying in child support? Just curious for budgeting purposes, since you're in such a bind. The air in the garage grew thick with an uncomfortable silence, an almost palpable shift in the atmosphere. That's hardly your concern, Avery, Mom interjected, her voice sharp, a clear warning in her tone. It's a private family matter. Just trying to help with the budget, I said, my voice dripping with feigned sweetness, a saccharine tone that grated on Dakota's nerves. Dad cleared his throat, a nervous habit he developed when tension mounted. Actually, we should discuss financial arrangements. Your mother and I can help with. No need, I've got it covered, I cut in, a quiet triumph in my voice. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. We need to talk about Dakota. Ryan, my ex-boyfriend, Ethan's former business partner. I'd almost forgotten about him, banished him to the recesses of my memory. I need to run some errands, I announced, grabbing my keys, the metal cool against my palm. The drive to Liam's gallery took 15 minutes, each one spent savoring the mental image of my family's faces when they finally realized what was coming, the shock and disbelief that would inevitably contort their carefully composed expressions. Liam greeted me with a knowing smile and a thick stack of papers. The collective is absolutely thrilled, he said, spreading out the lease agreement on a large table in his private office. 12 months, starting next week. It's all signed and sealed. The first payment came through this morning. Are you sure about this, Avery? It's a rather impactful decision, he asked, his expression serious, a hint of concern in his eyes. They've never truly seen me, I said, signing the papers with a flourish, my hand steady, my resolve unyielding. Time to open their eyes. Liam handed me a set of new keys, gleaming in his palm, the physical manifestation of my new beginning. For the collective, don't forget to introduce yourself to your new tenants. When I returned to my bungalow, Dakota's car was already in the driveway, its engine still warm. She was in my studio, issuing orders to a couple of burly movers she'd apparently hired, pointing at my finished pieces with a condescending air. "Oh, good. You're back," she chirped, oblivious to the storm brewing within me, to the deep-seated resentment that had finally reached its breaking point. "We need your help deciding where to donate these old pots. They're really not baby-safe, and frankly, they clash with the new decor I have in mind." "Really?" I said, my voice flat, a hint of steel beneath the surface, my eyes fixed on her. "Actually," I said, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips, "I think I'll keep them for now." "Don't be difficult, Avery. The movers are charging by the hour," she said, exasperated, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "Daddy's not made of money, you know." "Who's paying them?" I asked, my eyebrow raised, a pointed question. "Daddy, of course," she replied, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world, as if he were an endless ATM. Interesting. I headed to my small bedroom, pulling the door almost shut, and began composing a letter, my pen scratching across the paper, each word carefully chosen, each sentence a step towards my freedom. "Dear family, by the time you read this." A soft knock at my door, interrupting my thoughts. "Avery, Mom wants to know if you'll join us for dinner. We're planning the nursery color scheme for the studio. We thought you'd want to be involved." "I'll be right there," I called back, continuing to write, each word a step towards my liberation. 4 days left. I sealed the letter, tucked it carefully into my travel bag, and headed out. They thought they were dismantling my life, piece by painstaking piece, reducing it to dust. They didn't realize they were simply providing the narrative for my greatest work yet, my masterpiece of departure. The next morning, the air in my studio crackled with tension, thick with unspoken words and rising fury. Dakota waved my pottery journal in the air, its pages filled with sketches, notes, and dreams, her face flushed with fury, her eyes blazing with righteous indignation. "The Kyoto Fellowship? You're planning to abandon us, to just leave Dakota and the twins when they need you most. How could you be so selfish? You went through my personal belongings?" I asked, my voice dangerously low, a tremor of controlled rage in my words, a stark contrast to her theatrical outburst. "Of course I did," she hissed, taking a step closer, her breath smelling faintly of stale coffee and desperation. "You've been acting suspiciously for days, Avery. You've been hiding something from us." Mom and Dad burst into the studio, drawn by the commotion, their faces a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. "Show them how utterly selfish you really are, Avery," Dakota screamed, thrusting the journal at them, her hand shaking with manufactured emotion. "You accepted this without consulting us, without considering your sister's impossible situation, my situation, our family reputation." Dad's voice trembled with indignation, his face growing red, a vein throbbing in his temple. I let out a sharp, incredulous laugh, a sound that startled even myself, a bitter, ironic sound. "You mean my career, my home, my life. This isn't about you, Avery. Dakota needs Mom began, stepping forward, her hand reaching for my arm, an attempt to placate me to regain control. And I'm always expected to provide it. I interjected, cutting her off, my voice rising, fueled by years of unspoken frustration. Because that's what family does. Dakota shrieked, tears now streaming freely down her face, a truly Oscar-worthy performance designed to elicit sympathy. You know what's truly fascinating? I said, my voice dropping back to that eerily calm tone, making them lean in, confused, intrigued despite themselves. None of you ever bothered to ask how I bought this house in the first place. You rent from Robert, Dad frowned, his brow furrowed with confusion. That's what you told us, what we were always told. No, Dad. I bought it 5 years ago with the money from my little trinkets, I said, a pointed, lingering glare at Dakota. The very same money, a tidy sum of $350,000, in fact, that mysteriously appeared in Dakota's bank account last month when Ethan vanished. Her face drained of all color, turning a sickly pale, her tears abruptly stopping, replaced by a stunned, horrified silence. And how you knew exactly when to tell Ryan I was cheating on him. Right before my first major gallery showing in New York, costing me that opportunity. I continued, my voice gaining strength, each word a carefully aimed dart. That's ancient history. She stammered, flustered, trying to wave away the past like an annoying fly, desperate to change the subject. Like you lied about Ethan's financial dealings. About the money you've been stashing away, preparing for this crisis, I retorted, unwavering, my gaze fixed on her, unblinking. Mom stepped between us, her eyes wide with dawning horror, realizing the true extent of the betrayal unfolding. Your sister is going through a terrible divorce. A divorce she meticulously orchestrated. I cut in, my voice unwavering, betraying no emotion, just cold, hard facts. You're being hysterical, Avery, Dad said, his face paling, a desperate attempt to regain control to dismiss my words. No, Dad, this is exactly me. You just never bothered to truly see it, I replied, a chilling finality in my tone. I pulled out my phone, dialing Liam's number, putting him on speaker. Avery, the collective's here. We're ready when you are. Liam's voice boomed through the stunned silence, a welcome intrusion. Perfect timing, I said, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips. Could you bring over the lease paperwork? My family should probably see it. You can't lease what you don't own. Mom snapped, her voice rising in a desperate, panicked shriek, finally understanding the depth of my plan. I calmly produced the deed to the bungalow from my pocket, the official document rustling softly as I unfolded it, the legal proof of my ownership. Good thing I own it then. Dakota, fueled by desperation, lunged for the papers, her eyes wide and wild, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. You can't do this. My children, they have nowhere to go. Your children have a very healthy trust fund from Ethan's parents, darling. The one you conveniently forgot to mention, totaling over $600,000, I said, meeting her desperate gaze. Ryan told me everything. He had all the proof, the bank statements, the emails. The doorbell chimed, a polite, firm ring, announcing the arrival of my new chosen family. Liam entered, followed by the diverse group of artisans from the collective, their faces alight with enthusiasm, their creative energy already filling the space. You must be Avery's family, one of them said brightly, a cheerful greeting to a family in utter disarray. We're so excited to transform this wonderful space into our new creative hub. Whatever game you're playing, Avery, stop it now. Mom grabbed my arm, her fingers digging into my skin, her face a mask of panic, her eyes pleading. The game's already over, Mom. You have until Sunday to find alternative arrangements, I said, gently but firmly removing her hand from my arm, releasing myself from her grasp. The locks will be changed Monday morning. You can coordinate with Liam for your things. You'd throw your own sister out onto the street? Dad's voice rose to a roar, his face purple with outrage, his fists clenched. No, I said, looking directly into his eyes, my gaze unwavering. I'm just doing what you always taught me, Dad, looking out for family. My chosen family. The people who actually support my dreams, not dismiss them. Dakota began to sob theatrically, collapsing onto a nearby chair, a crumpled heap of designer clothes and false tears, her performance losing its impact now that her secrets were laid bare. I'll be gone by morning, I told them, my voice calm but resolute, a promise I intended to keep. The collective moves in next week. You can reach my lawyer if you have any questions. Gone where? Mom demanded, her voice cracking, desperation clinging to every syllable. Where will you go? Does it matter? I asked, a faint, almost pitying smile on my lips. You never truly saw me when I was here anyway, so my physical location won't make a difference. Their shouts and accusations faded behind me as I walked out, the heavy front door clicking shut, severing the last fragile tether to a past that no longer served me. My phone buzzed with a final text from Ryan. So proud of you, Avery. You deserve this. You've earned it. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I was too. The moving truck for the Artisan Collective arrived at 9 a.m. sharp on Sunday, its massive engine rumbling in the quiet morning, ready to breathe new life into my old space. I watched from the airport terminal, a world away, the fluorescent lights of the departure lounge a stark contrast to the warm, natural light of my studio. My phone exploded with notifications, angry texts, desperate voicemails, incoherent threats, a symphony of their unraveling. A video call came through from Liam. You're missing quite a show, he said, his voice laced with amusement, turning the camera to my bungalow. Dakota, still in her designer clothes from the day before, stood defiantly in front of the movers, tears streaming down her face, her voice hoarse, shouting at the calm, efficient artisans. This is my sister's house. You can't just. Actually, ma'am, it's our house for the next 12 months, based on a legally binding contract. One of the collective members stated calmly, holding up the signed lease, a stark contrast to Dakota's frantic flailing. Mom's Mercedes SUV screeched into the driveway, tires spitting gravel. Where is she? Where's Avery? She shrieked, her voice frantic, searching frantically for me, for someone to blame. Probably on her way to her flight, Liam answered, his voice remarkably placid, almost bored. What flight? Dad appeared, his face a furious crimson, veins throbbing in his neck, his hands clenched into tight fists. This is ridiculous, Dakota screamed, her voice reaching a hysterical pitch, cracking under the pressure. I have children, we have nowhere to go, you can't do this to us. That's not quite true, ma'am, another collective member said, a younger woman with bright, empathetic eyes, holding up a folder of documents. According to these meticulously detailed bank statements we received from a legal contact, you have a rather healthy savings account, over $150,000, plus that lovely condo in your name that you bought last year, listed as a rental property in Phoenix. It's quite spacious, actually. Dakota's face went ashen, her tears abruptly stopping, replaced by a stunned, horrified silence. Her carefully constructed victim narrative had just imploded. My boarding call echoed through the terminal, a siren song of freedom, a final, beckoning call. Valerie, baby, please, we can talk about this. Mom grabbed Liam's phone, her voice desperate, pleading. Check the studio door, I said quietly, my voice barely a whisper, yet clear enough to carry over the phone. I left you something. I ended the call, but not before I heard the distinct, frantic sound of an envelope being torn open. Inside, they would find 3 things. A copy of the new lease agreement for the collective, a photo of me at the airport, smiling brightly and undeniably free, and a letter that began, Dear family, you wanted my space. Congratulations. Now you have nothing. My phone continued to buzz incessantly as I boarded the plane, but I silenced it, tucking it away. The very last text message that flashed across the screen before I turned it off made me smile. You've ruined everything. Coming from her, it was the highest compliment, a testament to the success of my quiet reckoning. I settled into my business class seat, ordered a glass of sparkling water, and pulled out my sketchpad. The flight attendant paused, peering at my drawing. A solitary figure, unburdened, standing before a vast, open landscape, the outlines of broken chains scattered behind them like discarded thoughts. That's beautiful, she said, her voice soft. What's it called? New Horizons, I replied, adding a bold stroke of sapphire blue to the evolving landscape, a symbol of the vast, open future awaiting me. My lawyer's email came through, a final confirmation in bold text. Lease agreement filed and recorded. Cease and desist letter ready if needed for any further harassment. Enjoy Kyoto, Avery, you're free. Free. The word resonated deep within me as the plane lifted off the runway, soaring towards a new beginning. A new chapter crafted entirely by my own hands, shaped by my own terms. 3 months had passed since I left the wreckage of my old life behind, since I had consciously chosen to shed the weight of expectation and obligation. Kyoto had been everything I dreamed of, a symphony of ancient traditions and vibrant artistic expression. I immersed myself in new techniques, explored different clays, and found inspiration in every stone garden and tea ceremony. "You transformed that nightmare into pure brilliance, Avery," Penelope said, her eyes tracing the intricate contours of my latest ceramic sculpture. We were in my new, sun-drenched studio in Kyoto, a serene space overlooking a small, meticulously cared-for garden. "This piece will be the absolute highlight of the exhibit. It's truly breathtaking." The gallery director, a stern but fair woman named Akari, approached us, wanting a title for the sprawling, magnificent creation. I stepped back, admiring the towering sculpture, a swirling vortex of deep blues and raw, earthy tones, shot through with delicate veins of pure gold leaf, glimmering like veins of ore. At its core, a hollow, perfectly rendered space, the exact dimensions of my old studio, a void transformed into a powerful presence. "Emancipation," I decided, the word rolling off my tongue with a satisfying certainty. "I'm calling it emancipation." My phone chimed, an email from Liam. "Your sister's latest public meltdown has gone viral, Avery. You need to see this. It's quite something." The headline made my stomach clench with a mixture of dread and morbid curiosity. "Local woman claims artist abandoned family. Public uncovers different story." "Oh no," I muttered, clicking the link, bracing myself. Comments poured in, a torrent of righteous indignation from strangers. "Wait, the abandoned sister had a secret condo and a massive savings account while crying poor? What a fraud, what a scammer." Found the golden child's social media. Years of bragging about wealth while her sister was secretly paying her bills anonymously. The hypocrisy is astounding. "Looks like your sister's attempt at victimhood on social media spectacularly backfired," Penelope observed, a slight, knowing smirk playing on her lips, a shared understanding passing between us. An email from Mom popped up. "How could you let this happen, Avery? Your sister is utterly devastated, truly broken. Her reputation is in tatters. Please, darling, come home and fix this. You're the only one who can." Delete. A quiet sense of peace settled over me, a feeling of liberation I hadn't known was possible until now. "You okay?" Penelope asked, her hand resting gently on my shoulder, sensing the flicker of old pain. "Actually, yes," I said, putting my phone down, the digital chaos a world away from my present serenity. The studio door burst open and Akari, the residency director, rushed in, her face alight with barely contained excitement. "Avery, incredible news. The International Museum Association wants your entire collection, all of it. They're offering a world tour. 6 countries, starting with London, then Paris, Berlin, Rome, Tokyo, and finally New York," she exclaimed, practically bouncing on the balls of her feet. "They're calling your work a revolutionary exploration of personal freedom and the breaking of emotional chains. It's a masterpiece, Avery, a profound statement. And that blog post about your story is being optioned for a documentary series." Akari continued, her voice full of breathless excitement. "People are hailing it as a powerful example of quiet resilience and karmic justice. It's simply amazing." A text from Ryan popped up. "Saw the news. Saw your art too. You're truly incredible, Avery. Dakota is finally showing her true colors to everyone now. The truth always comes out, doesn't it? The museum wants to know if you'll speak at the opening in London," Akari said, her eyes shining with pride. "Share your journey, your inspiration." I turned back to my sculpture, emancipation, a towering testament to my journey. "Yes," I said, a firm resolve in my voice, a quiet strength that had been lying dormant for too long. "I think it's time." "What will you tell them?" Penelope asked, intrigued, sensing the gravity of the moment, the weight of the story I was about to share. I picked up a small brush, adding a final, shimmering touch of gold to the base of the sculpture, a symbol of the invaluable worth I had found within myself, a reclamation of my own narrative. "The truth," I said, my voice strong and clear. "That sometimes the greatest masterpiece you can create is the life you save by walking away." The London Gallery buzzed with an electric energy, a hum of anticipation that filled the grand hall. Spotlights illuminated my sculptures, casting long, dramatic shadows. "5 minutes, Avery," Akari whispered, a broad smile on her face, her hand resting reassuringly on my arm. Are you ready? My phone lit up. Liam. Turn on the news now, Avery. Akari quickly pulled up the live broadcast on her tablet. Ethan, Dakota's ex-husband, was on screen, looking grim but resolute, his voice steady. After reviewing irrefutable evidence of financial fraud and emotional manipulation, he announced, his gaze direct. The court has granted me full, sole custody of our children. Their mother's actions have shown a complete disregard for their well-being. The camera panned to Dakota, her face tear-streaked and pale, her expensive clothes disheveled, being escorted by stern-faced police officers into a waiting vehicle. Embezzlement and fraud charges, the news ticker read at the bottom of the screen, a chilling summary of her downfall. Your sister's going to jail, Akari said softly, her voice filled with a quiet shock. No, I corrected her gently, my voice calm, almost detached, devoid of triumph, just a quiet acceptance. She's finally facing the consequences of her choices. That's all. The gallery doors opened, and a throng of people flooded in, a wave of eager faces, art critics, collectors, and curious onlookers. I heard gasps of awe as they laid eyes on Emancipation, now valued at more than my parents' entire estate, a staggering testament to its power and my journey. Ryan, looking sharp in a well-tailored suit, caught my eye from the crowd. He offered a small, proud smile. Couldn't miss this, he said, his voice laced with genuine admiration as he approached. It's magnificent, Avery, all of it. Even the difficult parts, especially those. He handed me a folded newspaper, its headlines screaming scandal. Prominent local businessman resigns amidst scandal. Below the headline was a blurry photo of my father leaving his corporate office, his head bowed, his shoulders slumped, looking utterly defeated. The fraud investigation into Dakota's schemes led to some creative accounting at his firm, Ryan explained, his voice low. He's been covering up her financial misdeeds for years, using company funds. It's all coming out now. I stepped onto the podium, the spotlight warm on my face, the murmur of the crowd settling into an expectant silence. People often ask why I sculpt hollow spaces, I began, my voice clear and strong, resonating through the gallery. Empty forms, missing pieces, negative space imbued with gold. They ask what I'm trying to convey. My mother, looking frail and aged, a shadow of her former imperious self, slipped in at the very back of the crowd, her eyes scanning the room, finally resting on me, a mixture of fear and something akin to regret in her gaze. Sometimes, I continued, my gaze sweeping across the faces in the audience, meeting their eyes one by one, the most valuable thing we own is the courage to leave space empty, to resist filling it with other people's expectations and demands. Mom's eyes met mine, and for the first time in my life, she averted her gaze first, a subtle acknowledgement of a truth too painful to bear, too heavy to deny. My family wanted me to trade my dreams for their convenience, I said, watching her flinch, a tremor running through her slight frame. Instead, I sculpted their demands into art. I transformed their negativity into creation. They say success is the best revenge, I paused, letting the words hang in the air, a challenge, a quiet defiance. But I disagree. The best revenge is living authentically, truly, even when the truth is painful, even when it costs you everything you thought you had, even when it means breaking away from what you once believed defined you. After my speech, Mom slowly approached me, clutching the last letter I had written to them, its edges worn from handling, its message now fully understood. Your father's firm, it's ruined, she whispered, her voice barely audible, a ghost of her former self. We've lost everything, everything is gone. No, I corrected her gently, my voice firm, devoid of malice, just a quiet acceptance of reality. You lost what was never truly yours to begin with. My space, my talent, my spirit, my compliance, my willingness to be defined by you. I'm so sorry, Avery, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes, finally overflowing, a genuine expression of grief I had rarely seen. Good, I cut in, my voice unwavering, because that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I chose myself. I chose my art, my future, my peace. The gallery director, Akari, a beaming smile on her face, raised her glass, a signal for a toast. To Avery, she announced, her voice ringing out, whose Emancipation series just sold for a record-breaking sum, and whose incredible story reminds us that sometimes the greatest art comes from knowing what to leave behind. I raised my glass, catching Ryan's proud smile, Akari's knowing nod, and Liam's thumbs up from the back of the crowded room. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from the Artisan Collective, now thriving in my old studio, the place I had reclaimed for true creation. Your space is filled with light and creation, just like you wanted, just like you deserved. It's beautiful, Avery. We love it. I looked around at my work, at the hollow spaces now filled with gold, at the shadows transformed into light, at the truth painted in colors too vibrant to ignore. They wanted me to trade my dreams for their convenience, I thought, a quiet, profound certainty settling over me. Instead, I sculpted their demands into my masterpiece, and now the whole world can see exactly what they missed. I raised my glass higher, toasting not to success or revenge, but to the empty spaces I refused to fill, to the boundless possibilities that now lay before me. Sometimes the most beautiful art comes from knowing exactly what to leave behind. And sometimes the greatest inheritance is the life you choose for yourself.